It's the start of the winter hunting season, and I've joined hunt saboteurs in their patrol vehicle, observing if this hunting party, which operates in Warwickshire, is adhering to the letter of the law and only following a trail. But as we turn into a village, a fox is seen dashing around a housing estate, with pursuing hounds emerging seconds later. The saboteurs spring to action to try and call the hounds off.
So we see a fox running, clearly looking petrified, across the road and into a housing estate, which was going to be followed by the hounds, which we had to stop. How is that not hunting, and how is that acceptable?
If Sabs weren't there, then the hounds would have gone onto the housing estate, where there's nowhere for the fox to hide. They would have killed it.
Nick joins us in the studio now. The trail hunt you went on turned out to be pretty eventful.
Well, it certainly was eventful. I mean, you do sometimes hear stories of foxes still being chased in the countryside 20 years since the Hunting Act came into force. But actually to see an instance of a fox being chased around a village with your own eyes, it really was quite something. A royal reception for some of the last survivors of a global conflict that defined a generation, 80 years on from its end. At the National Memorial Arboretum, a special ceremony honouring British service personnel who fought Japan in Asia and the Pacific. Remarkably, more than 30 who are still among us managed to be here to attend.
I shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
When you heard the news about the Japanese surrender, what happened afterwards? Did you have any time to celebrate?
Well, we did, but we wasn't very happy about things at the time because, as you know, we were called the Forgotten Army.
Can I ask you finally how it feels to be here 80 years on, talking about things that you did obviously as a very, very young man?
I mean, as you might know, I was only about 17 going into 18, So, yeah, we took it in our stride all the time,
Well, this may well be one of the last grand anniversaries of the Second World War, in which we're still lucky enough to share with those service members of what many call the greatest generation. And as we move forward into the future, it will be up to the rest of us to ensure that their sacrifice is never forgotten. Nick Smith, ITV News, the National Memorial Arboretum. Valleyfest in Somerset's Chew Valley ran its biggest ever festival last year, but struggled to break even, so its organiser is postponing this year's event and held a much smaller boutique festival, hoping to scale back up in 2026.
It is unbelievably hard. Everything has doubled, I would say, some things even higher than that. So it's a treacherous business to be in. It's a lonely place to be when the tickets are not selling, and the future of festivals, it has to have the backing of industry, and we need support, government help, assistance, if we want this industry to survive.
Last year across the country, more than 80 festivals were cancelled, and if current trends continue, we could see more than 200 calling time since the pandemic ended in 2022. Many in the industry say smaller independent festivals like this are the lifeblood of the events sector, and they're a bit of a testing ground for new artists. And if these kind of events start to vanish in bigger numbers, it has a knock-on effect at supersized events like here at Glastonbury as the talent pool shrinks, and so does the wider UK music cultural scene. Are you concerned with kind of the decline that we've seen in festivals across the country, and we've seen so many cancellations?
It is, it's difficult if you're starting in the industry, not if you're established, you can go where you like. If you're new and all of a sudden there are less places you can perform, it's really hard.
We know small artists that have got a really low budget and they can't find a venue to perform, and if they do find a venue to perform, they've got to pay to perform there, and they're not going to sell enough tickets to break even.
While the evenings are still mild, this is prime time for night coursing. I'm on patrol with Wiltshire's rural policing team close to Marlborough, on the lookout for anything suspicious.
This time of year we're now seeing an increase in hare coursing and poaching activity. So this evening we're out basically looking for vehicles which could be used in that type of criminality. So it's almost like a gateway type of crime. So quite often we see individuals who may, as a younger years, start to learn poaching or hare coursing. And while they're doing those activities, they're learning the lay of the land, and then they may progress into other crime types such as burglaries, thefts. The hare coursing itself, quite often we'll see criminal damage being done, threats and intimidation to the rural communities. Is that a 4x4 that's quite muddy, come flying down the Ridgeway byway. This time of night there's not really going to be many people up there, and it's now around some barns up there. So unfortunately on this occasion they've managed to get through the officers in the area. However, we think that that's probably just disrupted their activities. Sometimes actually we have to look at it from another point of view, is we don't always get the arrest or the seizures, but actually we've disrupted that activity for the area.
Last summer saw record temperatures across the country, and with the onset of climate change, scientists estimate that makes it 160 times more likely to happen again in the future. And here in the Highlands, where ice patches used to remain all year, well, as summer approaches, they now all but vanish. As the team reach the summit, a few patches are still clinging on, but they fear in years to come, when they repeat this trek, the ice won't be here at all. Thousands who share their concerns are set to join them as they make their way south. Our farmers are of course a key pillar in our food supply chain, yet they're facing pressures the likes of which we haven't seen for generations, battling against rising inflation, the threat of climate change, a shrinking workforce, and ever-increasing demands from supermarkets and their customers.
Because it's not just a job, you have to do it as a life farming. It has to be in your blood. At the minute, the future is very uncertain. Well, just the shortage of farmers. A lot of farmers are giving up because the workload and the expense of it all is increasing.
And as we look back over one of the hottest, driest Junes on record, perhaps the biggest threat of all to our food supply is now manifesting.
You can see on the soil in front of you, for example, we've got cracks. So it's already showing that the impact of the weather that we've had recently, as we see the life cycles of crops get shorter due to those warm conditions, that has a direct impact on reducing yields.
Lucinda Ritchie has a degenerative condition, severely limiting her movement and affecting her ability to speak. But that hasn't stopped this self-confessed petrolhead from achieving a lifelong ambition, having her own personal tour of Silverstone Museum of UK motorsport.
So this car here, have we got a good view of that car there? So this one won the Formula One world title in 1966.
All from the comfort of her living room, hundreds of miles away in Billingshurst in West Sussex. Lucinda, fantastic to meet you. Tell me, what does it mean for you to be here and taking this tour?
Since childhood I have loved cars. Since disabilities became more limiting, I have missed watching cars. So this is such an exciting opportunity.
And just tell me what this kind of technology means to you, being able to go to places where you couldn't have reached before.
It is certainly life-changing and opens up the impossible for me. It reduces my isolation and allows more interactions. I always talk about pushing the boundaries of accessibility to see what is actually possible.